This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, no place to stay. Outreach workers say 2S LGBTQ plus youth are disproportionately affected by homelessness.
Tow truck turmoil. Operators in Sydney expressed their frustration with City Hall over a proposed bylaw.
And new arrival. Eskasoni's health centre welcomes its first ultrasound unit.
Scattered showers, risk of a thunderstorm this evening. We're clearing into the overnight and a really nice Wednesday shaping up across the province. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Reports have shown that 2S LGBTQ plus youth in Canada experience homelessness at a disproportionate rate.
That's in line with what support workers across Nova Scotia are seeing. As Selena Alders reports, they say the only solution to help these young people is more safe and affordable housing.
When Ray Paul first started as a housing coordinator with the Youth Project about a year ago, he had no clue how many people in the 2S LGBTQ plus community would need his help. In only 10 months, Paul said he's spoken to dozens of young queer and trans people experiencing homelessness in the Halifax area, and he's only been able to find steady housing for a handful of them.
I wish that it was as easy as like, you come to me, you need housing, I have a place for you to live, but oftentimes I'm working with people who, are either really on the cusp of being unhoused or are fleeing an abusive situation, and there's nowhere for them to go.
Shanna Grant also sees a disproportionate number of young people in the queer community coming through the shelter where she works in Yarmouth.
A lot of the times we see that their families just aren't supportive of who they are, so they're asked to leave the home. It could be that they were already out on their own and just can't find a job because of who they are, or it could be it can be hard to get a rental as well, not just because of the current climate, but because of, again, who they are.
At the other end of the province in Cape Breton, the situation is no different.
I think that housing for young people in general is something that is desperately needed. We need safe spaces for kids to land when, for whatever reason, they feel unsafe in their current living situation.
Back in Halifax, Phoenix Youth Shelter is at full capacity. Manager Janelle Camo says about 30 to 40% of youth accessing their shelter are members of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. She says there's not enough options out there to help these young people find more stable housing.
Shelters are just not the answer long term. I think we do the best we can at being a stopgap measure, but until there's a place for youth to transition to, unfortunately, we're not going to see change at the shelter. The biggest challenge is always for us, what's next, what's available for youth, for queer youth especially.
The Department of Community Services says it funds a variety of different organizations, including the Youth Project, Shift House, and Phoenix. But it admits there's still work to be done to help queer and trans youth in this province. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
There was a heavy police presence at City Hall in Sydney this morning as council gathered to discuss a proposed tow truck bylaw. It would put in rules around the cost of towing and impounding vehicles, but council did not discuss the controversial topic today. Instead, the city has decided to delay any changes until the fall. The CBC's Kyle Moore reports.
Tow truck operators filled council chambers in Sydney today, but many left frustrated and upset with police and CBRM staff.
We're all here today because we don't trust them.
The proposed bylaw would limit the fees tow truck drivers could charge to clean up accident scenes. It would also place restrictions on licensing of operators and regulate which companies get called to an accident scene. Many towing operators feel it would hurt their business financially.
Abolish it, get rid of it. Go mind their own business. They want to get in the tow truck business, buy 30 trucks like we had to.
Earlier this month, more than a dozen tow trucks paraded through the streets of Sydney and marched inside City Hall demanding a meeting with the mayor.
Personally, I think they're trying to screw us around. I think they're going to call a private meeting without notifying us, come in and vote it in, and screw us over. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion.
Today, police were everywhere, both inside and outside the Civic Centre as the meeting began.
Staff in the building were a little uneasy over the last protest that happened here. So for their well-being and sense of security. Additional officers were assigned to this area today.
Police say changes are needed because of complaints over price gouging. Staff Sergeant Joe Farrell says in consultation with CBRM's legal department, it was decided to change the proposed bylaw and bring it back before council in the fall.
The changes were in relation to the licensing and the fees that were being charged in relation to the towing association attending to certain calls.
Farrell says the public will be notified when the process moves forward. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Officials are now fully evacuating Churchill Falls, Labrador, after learning the wildfire threatening the town has jumped the river. There are about 100 people still in the community, including essential workers at the nearby power station. Andrew Ferry, the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, spoke about the increased risk at a briefing earlier today.
It's what we were all hoping wouldn't happen. So there is a very much a heightened level of risk of fire propagation now on the community side of the river.
The river had served as a natural fire break since the wildfire started on June 13th. The town was evacuated 6 days later when the fire grew. There are currently 6 water bombers fighting the wildfire.
And Ryan Snoddon with us now for our first quick look at the weather forecast.
Yeah, so some folks in Labrador are hoping for rain, and folks here too.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get that same system that's going to be bringing some beneficial rain to Western Labrador. We'll be bringing some wet weather into our neck of the woods for Thursday. But in the shorter term, it's a clear out, and we're already seeing that clear out underway now. And you can see where temperatures have popped here over the Tri-County area, and this is thanks to the sun that's been breaking through. In through central and eastern areas, it's been more unsettled around this low, especially up into Colchester County, from Truro up into the Malagash area and Tatamagouche. It has really been coming down there this afternoon and across PEI as well. That low is slowly but surely on its way out to the east, but around the backside of that low, we will continue to see at least the risk of some scattered showers and even a risk of a rumble of thunder as we roll through this evening and then clearing into the overnight. There's that system that we're going to be watching moving in from the west, but not for Wednesday. Looks terrific tomorrow. Widespread temperatures 23 to 27. Southwest winds near 20. So certainly a sea breeze being felt along the Tri-County area and along the Atlantic coastline. So in those onshore winds, temperatures are going to be cooler, high teens in most cases. So there goes the low, and this is what we're looking at for Wednesday. Again, looking at that nice day, and then we've got that wet weather tracking back in as we look into the Thursday time period. There it is there. Scattered showers at the very least. That looks set to clear out, though we will see maybe a lingering shower on Friday. Looks like the long weekend starts nice. Maybe some showers creeping in, though, as we move into Sunday, and then some question marks about Monday. We'll talk about that with your full 7-day forecast coming up.
A group of Mexican migrant workers have been awarded a total of more than $23,000 in lost compensation from a fishery company based in southwest Nova Scotia. This comes after the Nova Scotia Labour Board ordered Ocean Pride Fisheries to pay 8 former workers in lieu of notice and to cover deductions from their wages for immigration fees and other costs. The group claimed that Ocean Pride terminated them without notice, but Ocean Pride said that the workers quit. In a statement, company president Jules LeBlanc said the employees named in the decision, quote, had never told Ocean Pride Fisheries Limited that they had issues or concerns with regard to their employment. He also said Ocean Pride treats its employees with the utmost respect. Well, Stacey Gomez is the executive director of the Centre for Migrants Workers' Rights in Nova Scotia. So first off, your reaction to this decision?
This is an incredible win for migrant workers in Nova Scotia and beyond, and it's a long time coming.
Do you think this will have further ramifications?
I hope that it does. I hope that it sends a message to employers in Nova Scotia and throughout Canada that migrant workers have the same rights as Canadians, and they should be respected.
Well, can you talk to me a bit about what are some of the stories that migrant workers are telling you about their working conditions?
I can. So from June to February of this year, we have received over 60 reports of abuse from migrant workers throughout work sites in Nova Scotia. So we know that there is physical abuse happening, psychological, and financial abuse, for example.
Well, talk to me about some of the changes that you think should be made.
It's important to prevent abuse from happening in the first place, and this can be done by having greater oversight of employers. And that starts with having targeted and unannounced inspections of work sites that employ migrant workers, but also ensuring that every migrant worker that comes to Canada has an open work permit. Currently, migrant workers have, typically they have closed work permits, which tie them to one single employer. And when there's a situation of abuse, they cannot easily leave. Importantly, migrant workers should also have permanent resident status on arrival. That would give them the same access to rights, benefits, and essential services as Canadians.
And can you talk to me about the reaction that this group of workers has had to the decision?
Yes. The workers are still processing the decision. One of the workers shared that she feels heard by the Labour Board, that their concerns have truly been taken into consideration, and that the issue was investigated in depth.
All right. Well, Stacey, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Inflation made an unexpected jump last month. Analysts had been forecasting a small drop, but it increased to 2.9% from 2.7% in April. The increase was driven largely by higher prices for services, which were up 4.6%. Higher mortgage and rental costs also contributed. Grocery prices were up for the first time in nearly a year, while fuel prices dipped slightly. Core inflation, which factors out volatile items like food and fuel, rose to 2.85%. The increase has reduced expectations of another Bank of Canada rate cut in July. The bank trimmed its a quarter point off its trend-setting rate back in June. On June 5th, it now stands at 4.75%.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is painting a less than rosy summer for tourism in the Atlantic region. A survey of 139 members showed 80% do not expect to see an increase in revenue this summer. The group blames the rising cost of living that is trickling down to affect domestic traffic and growing business costs. Duncan Robertson is Senior Policy Analyst with CFIB.
Hospitality as well as retail are citing the lack of demand as an issue for their business. So we really want to see hopefully that improve over the summer, but when we ask them their expectations, it's about to stay just what it was last year. So that's a concern.
I'll talk to Duncan Robertson of CFIB about what local tourism operators are expecting this summer. That's our Newsmaker interview just after 6:30. The union that represents Halifax transit employees says a lack of relief staff is contributing to frequent cancellations for ferry service between Halifax and Dartmouth. The City of Halifax says that since the beginning of the year, over 650 ferry crossings have been canceled. Some of these cancellations have been due to the fact that there aren't enough workers to fill in for scheduled employees who are often off sick or absent, as well as weather and mechanical issues. The president of the transit union says that despite several job postings for relief workers, positions still need to be filled. The union plans to meet with the city again this week to discuss the issue.
An entangled North Atlantic right whale was spotted in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, according to Fisheries and Oceans Canada. The department says the whale was spotted over the weekend just east of New Brunswick's Miscou Island. Several survey and rescue teams were able to attach a tracking tag to the gear to help with efforts to free the critically endangered whale. Officials believe the whale is a 1.5-year-old female and that she may have been entangled for some time. A scientist at the Anderson Cabot Center for Ocean Life Research says there is rope around her body and at least one of her flippers.
A young whale in particular is quite vulnerable to these entanglements because the rope can get embedded into the tissue, especially around their flipper and sometimes around their body as they grow. And also it may be that she's carrying some weight attached gear. And so as they struggle to sort of swim against that drag of the attached gear, it's going to cause a continued decline if she's not disentangled.
If the weather cooperates, DFO says crews could attempt to disentangle the whale in the coming days. There are believed to be only about 340 North Atlantic right whales left in the world.
If Lyme disease wasn't enough, there's a new reason to be mindful of ticks. Experts are warning about a rise in anaplasmosis cases in humans. It's a bacterial infection spread by the same black-legged ticks responsible for spreading Lyme disease. The case counts have been steadily increasing over the past 15 years in Canada, with Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Ontario seeing about 500 cases a year. Anaplasmosis is a disease caused by a bacterium that infects white blood cells in humans and animals. Early symptoms include fever, chills, headache, and fatigue. If left untreated, longer-term symptoms, including respiratory failure, anemia, liver disease, and in severe cases, death.
People living in Eskasoni will no longer have to drive almost an hour to Sydney for an important health service. An ultrasound unit has opened at the health centre in the First Nations community, and it will be used by 1,500 patients each year, including new mothers. Erin Potty reports.
It was a big day in Eskasoni, one that was nearly 3 years in the making. People gathered at the local health centre to officially open a new ultrasound unit.
It will really help our community, to have the services here instead of traveling outside the community, long wait of appointments, and the big process that we have to go through to get those appointments. As a large community of 5,000, we need these services, and I hope this is one of the things of many others to come.
The diagnostic testing machine takes pictures inside the body using high-frequency sound waves. They're often used to find abdominal, pelvic, and thyroid issues. But ultrasounds are also important in monitoring the growth and development of babies in the womb. Denny says Eskasoni welcomes about 100 newborns each year.
It means a lot as a community, and even as our leadership, this is what we've been asking for a long time. And we thought it was impossible, but now today we have a machine here, so yeah.
The machine and its accessories cost $190,000 and was paid for by Nova Scotia Health. Health officials say the state-of-the-art machine can carry out 7 ultrasounds a day, or roughly 1,500 scans per year. They're now working to find someone to run the machine.
Currently, right now, we have a rotation of staff that are traveling from Sydney to Eskasoni to provide the services here. But ideally, it would be great to have a full-time employee here in the centre, and hopefully in the future it would be someone who's from Eskasoni and future ultrasound tech for the community, from the community.
And it's not just people from Eskasoni who will benefit. Residents in nearby communities will also be able to make appointments here. Denny says he hopes this is just the beginning and that Eskasoni's healthcare centre will keep growing. Erin Potty, CBC News, Eskasoni.
The catch of the day turned out to be much more blue than what 14-year-old Finlay Campbell expected. Campbell went out on a boat from Dartmouth with his fisherman grandfather on Saturday. It wasn't long before his grandfather pulled a rare blue lobster out of a trap. The phenomenon occurs every 1 in 2 million lobster and happens because of a genetic mutation. Campbell and his grandfather put the blue lobster back in the water once they were done taking photos.
Pretty neat.
Yeah, good catch. All right, it was a hockey heartbreak for Edmonton Oilers fans last night. The team lost the deciding game of the final in Florida 2-1 and had to watch the Panthers hoist the Stanley Cup.
It was also a disappointment for hockey fans elsewhere in the country, and they were hoping to see a Canadian team win the Cup for the first time since 1993. Paige Parsons has more.
It could have been a historic win. Instead, heartbreak for the Edmonton Oilers.
Sucks.
And their fans.
I was praying for this and then we didn't make it. That's so sad.
The Florida Panthers clinched the Stanley Cup in Game 7 Monday night. After winning the first 3 games of the series, the Panthers collapsed as the Oilers clawed their way back, winning the next 3, raising hopes that the Oilers could bring back the Cup for the first time in 34 years. If, for only one night, they weren't just Edmonton's team, They were Canada's team. It's been 31 years since a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. Many hoped the Oilers would end the drought.
I think there's a lot of those Oilers players that are saying, I really hope that's not my one shot at trying to win this thing.
Recent history provides reason for optimism. Florida lost in last year's final. Now they're getting ready for a parade. Despite the sting, Oilers fans remain loyal.
I'm proud of the team and I'm proud of the fans from Canada that came out, traveled all the way to Florida to cheer on their team.
These Winnipeggers wanted a cup for Canada.
It's tough to win a Stanley Cup, and Connor McDavid learned a lesson today, and he's going to come back stronger, and they're going to win the next one. And if not, maybe the Jets will.
Back in Edmonton, many were hoping that these streets would be filled with a Stanley Cup parade this week. Instead, they're packing away the banners and the fanfare. All that's left is hope for next year. Paige Parsons, CBC News, Edmonton.
Yeah, there's a little disappointment in our house last night, for sure.
Yeah, a little sleepy for a lot of folks,
Yeah,
too,
no
right?
kidding. No, there's always next year, like she said. First quick break on the way. Stay with us.
There's a lot more to come on CBC Nova Scotia News. A federal Liberal stronghold falls to the Conservatives. Why the result may signal some tough time ahead for Trudeau's Liberals.
And New Brunswick RCMP raised the alarm on the rising cases of sextortion in the province.
Isn't that a pretty view? Ryan's up next with his forecast. We'll see you after the break.
Ryan back with us now in the Halifax studio, where in this part of the province, we've been in a bit of a gray period, I would say, the last few days.
But folks in Yarmouth, things are starting to turn around.
Starting to clear out from west to east. That's going to be the trend through this evening into the overnight. And yeah, it's still really coming down. The rain is in through central parts of the province up in Colchester County in particular. Have a look at our webcam shot that shows beautiful Yarmouth. And
it's pretty sunny.
It is. It's beautiful.
Nice and sunny there. Temperatures into the low 20s. And yes, that system is slowly clearing out here. And you can see that has really popped the temperatures up. 20, 22 degrees Yarmouth and down into Shelburne County. Western Heads at 20. You can see where the temperatures are cooler through central and eastern areas. Onshore wind in Sydney keeping temperatures there near 14. Live look at the radar. Couple of bands that we're looking at. One that's kind of right along the coastline of Cape Breton, Richmond County, up into the Sydney metro area, at least creeping towards Sydney metro. So be mindful of that. That's pushing up there. And then we've got this line here, which is working its way in through the Truro region and up into the Tatamagouche area, Malagash, and then stretching up into PEI, where this has prompted rainfall warnings for the island, but no rainfall warnings here, but certainly looking at some heavier downpours, couple of lightning strikes with these down towards Stewiacke. And so, yeah, definitely be mindful that this is going to take its time, slowly fading to the east over the next few hours. That low, as it does depart, we'll continue to see these skies clearing, which they've already been doing over western areas, and this will dry out quite nicely. We are looking bigger picture at a pretty active pattern right now. Zonal west to east jet stream, and as a result, systems are coming, systems are going, where the heat continues to build across the U.S. South. 42 in Las Vegas right now, 39 in Phoenix, 29 in Orlando, 30 in Miami, where the Stanley Cup celebrations continue, as we saw there earlier in the program. So some shower chances again for central and eastern areas through this evening, but we are continuing to clear out. Watch the timeline here by 11 o'clock to midnight. Just looking at some lingering isolated shower chances done by tomorrow morning. Now, tomorrow again could be a bit sluggish in terms of the low-level cloud and fog patches, but those will retreat, and into the afternoon we're looking at a solid day, a mix of sun and cloud to even mostly sunny skies at times. Now, the southwest wind is going to have an influence, no doubt, tomorrow. Temperatures closer to the teens and low 20s here. Work your way inland. We're going to be into the mid to high 20s, and that is going to be a beautiful day, especially across Cape Breton tomorrow, the Northumberland shore. Temperatures 27, 28 degrees there. Halifax, 23 right along the coastline, 25 inland, 27 through Truro, and the valley will pop nicely tomorrow, 26, 27 degrees. Cooler in those onshore winds down towards the South Shore, 16 Liverpool, but inland we will be into the mid-20s. So nice day. Enjoy. Thursday, not so much. Clouds, showers, looking at one or two bands in particular that will track throughout the day. Temperatures 18 to 22. Maybe a bit warmer along the North Shore. Now, as we look at that timeline, there it is there, that kind of one or two bands that'll fade into the afternoon and evening. A secondary low coming in for Thursday night, but by all accounts, that looks set to clear out. Some lingering shower chances on the backside of that, isolated, but this is certainly a small risk for Friday, and then high pressure edging its way back in to kick off the weekend. Muggy meter, yeah, definitely it's been a bit muggy the last couple days, and it will be notably noticeable right through Thursday. In fact, peaking a little bit Thursday. Nice dry air Friday into the start of the weekend, and then creeping up for Sunday, and that's going to coincide with the showers that are expected to come in on Saturday night and Sunday. Now, it's going to be a clearing trend on Canada Day. From west to east, the Maritimes will clear. The devil's in the details on that timing, and it's Monday. Again, it's still a ways out, so we're going to drill into that, but keep your fingers crossed and hope those westerly winds clear it out a little earlier.
Definitely.
Yeah, every day counts. Could change. All right, thanks so much, Ryan. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Ryan.
Thank you.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourism Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismgaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
And up next, I'll talk with Duncan Robertson of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business about the reason some tourism operators are less than optimistic about this summer's tourism season. That's our Newsmaker interview.
Do stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is painting a less than rosy summer for tourism in the Atlantic region. A survey of 139 members showed 80% do not expect to see an increase in revenue this summer. Duncan Robertson is a senior policy analyst at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So, sir, why are tourism operators so pessimistic, if I can put it that way, about this summer season?
Well, look, they're expecting revenue to remain about as where it was last year. So with no real growth in revenue, but growth in costs, the cost of doing business, that just makes a bad situation worse. Also, when we look sectorally across the country, hospitality as well as retail are citing the lack of demand as an issue for their business. So we really want to see hopefully that improve over the summer. But when we ask them their expectations, it's about to stay just what it was last year. So that's a concern.
Yeah. Why do you think there's this lack of demand, as they put it?
Well, it could be, several different things. Of course, there is the cost of living and just tourism in general. We're seeing a softening in tourism in the Atlantic provinces, which makes up around 44% of visitors to Nova Scotia. So that could definitely be an issue. But, all the government can do is if we are going to see that lower demand, the government can reduce the costs on small businesses, making it easier for them to catch up and keep up rather than the real difficult situation that could be this summer.
I know there's been a push to try and get back to those pre-pandemic levels, which were pretty good for tourism, particularly in this province. We're not back there yet, are we? Or how close are we?
No, according to Tourism Nova Scotia, we are not at those levels yet. And again, we're looking at the sectors that were hit most during the pandemic. They're often the ones that are most invested in tourism as well. So there's some significant challenges. But look, government again can reduce these costs in the way of potentially cutting the fuel tax, looking provincially, and for the federal government to immediately return those carbon tax rebates, which we know are coming, but we're still unsure on how that will impact our members.
How likely could anything be done in the short term to help things better or make things better for this year's tourism season?
Yeah, well, like I said, again, revenue is most likely, according to small businesses, going to remain the same and costs are increasing. So when we're looking at that equation, if we could bring the costs down, that would definitely be preferential. And when we look to all orders of government, there's things that they all can do, right? If we look to municipalities, they can remove the patio fees for sidewalk patios. They can support small businesses impacted by construction during the summer and tourism months. The province, again, can reduce that provincial fuel tax as well as bring down the small business tax rate. And then again, federally, we want to see those carbon tax rebates support as many small businesses as possible. And on top of all this, again, we're going to be seeing the capital gains changes come in today. And that we expect is going to impact around half of small businesses. So we really want to look at that cost side of thing. We know the demand might be a more long-term goal, but if we can really bring those costs down in a quick and efficient way, we can provide some short-term kind of support, more support in the short term rather.
How much of this demand problem that you point out, how much of it is really indicative of what might be an industry that is overbuilt, perhaps? Too many Airbnbs, hotel rooms, the like?
Well, again, when we look at the hospitality industry, which is, again, that includes accommodations as well as, your favorite restaurant or coffee shop. Again, they are seeing some impact to demand, but particularly in Nova Scotia, we do see that accommodations are filling up. But again, the impact that we're seeing, the real softening in this tourism is around Atlantic Canada. So making sure that's more effective to travel between New Brunswick, Nova Scotia PEI, and as well as to Newfoundland. Again, a lot of that might come down to reducing that provincial fuel tax and finding ways to make it more affordable for Atlantic Canadians to visit neighboring provinces.
Are there infrastructure deficits? I mean, is it more difficult to get here, fewer flights, that kind of an impact that might be contributing to this as well?
Yeah, well, of course, again, the cost of gas plays a role into it. When we look to, maybe PEI, the PEI bridge toll, that's a somewhat of a barrier, right, in terms of the cost of getting to the island. But overall, we just want to see government address both the cost of living as well as the cost of doing business to make it more affordable to travel. And again, if they can bring down those costs for small businesses, it will help them get through, a summer that may see some plateauing in revenue and help them catch up with those fixed costs in which the government are placing on these small businesses.
All right, maybe we'll check in with you again in the fall and see how things did turn out. Duncan Robertson, thank you very much.
Anytime, thank you.
Coming up, staffing shortages in Canada's healthcare sector are increasingly leading to the hiring of temporary foreign workers.
Welcome back. The federal Liberals suffered a stinging loss in the by-election in Toronto yesterday. The Conservatives won a narrow victory in the longtime Liberal stronghold of Toronto St. Paul's.
And the results are raising questions about the Prime Minister's future. The CBC's Ashley Burke has the story.
A stunning win for the Conservatives. Candidate Don Stewart turning Toronto St. Paul's blue for the first time in 30 years.
I don't think this is the speech anybody thought I'd be making tonight. I didn't think so. I don't think our opponents thought so.
The Conservatives' first seat in urban Toronto since 2011.
We're going to bring it home.
And a surprise victory in the Liberal fortress of Toronto over candidate Leslie Church. Voters say the results send a clear message to her party and its leader.
People, generally speaking, are tired of the Trudeau administration.
It's time for a change in Canada.
You've got to get off the path you're on, or
you're going to wreck the party.
This was obviously not the result we wanted.
The Prime Minister says he hears people's concerns and frustrations.
It's clear that I and my entire Liberal team have much more work to do.
But experts say these results confirm what the polls have shown for months, that Trudeau and the Liberals are in deep trouble.
If they can't win Toronto-St. Paul's, they might be battling the Bloc Québécois for official opposition status rather than competing with the Conservatives to form a government if these results are replicated across the country.
This is a disappointing result.
As the result raised questions about Justin Trudeau's future, publicly members of his caucus are standing behind him.
The Prime Minister is committed to leading us into the next election, and he has our support.
I know that he'll have to reevaluate and look at the results of last night's by-election and do some reflecting, but that's up to him.
Nobody's going to last forever as a politician, but that calculus, that walk in the snow is for him to make, not for me, not for me to push him over in the snowbank.
Privately, some Liberal MPs tell CBC News there needs to be a major change in the Liberal Party, and that could mean Trudeau has to go. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Online blackmail, commonly known as sextortion, is an ongoing threat, especially to young people. The RCMP are sounding the alarm about the rapid rise in cases across Canada, specifically in New Brunswick. Hadil Ibrahim has a story.
In the spring of 2023, the New Brunswick RCMP saw a dramatic increase in the number of online sextortion reports. There was a 200% jump compared to the same time the year before, and the rate has held steady, which means the force is receiving about 1 report a day. Crime analyst Megan White says the reports are mostly from males under 22 who were tricked into sending intimate images, then extorted for money or more photos.
And the victims believed that this content would be further shared either with family members, with friends, with classmates, or even colleagues if they did not send money to the perpetrators.
Police want victims, especially young victims, to know that falling prey to this type of crime is not their fault and they will get through it. And while these cases are difficult to investigate because they're linked to international organized crime, prevention can be relatively simple.
More conversations with children at a younger age about online safety, consent, and sexuality. I know that that can be a controversial topic for many parents. However, they are exposed to this type of content more and more frequently at a younger age.
Jenna Morton has 2 twin boys who are 8 years old and a 13-year-old daughter. She says in their household, no subject is off limits.
We try to be really open about giving examples from our own lives where, you know what, I made this choice to go to this party and it didn't turn out the way I expected, and I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't let that become part of who I am.
RCMP say if someone is being blackmailed, they should stop talking to the extortionist, keep records of the conversation, and take screenshots. And regardless of age, they should not pay a ransom and immediately speak to police or a trusted person. Hadil Ibrahim, CBC News, St. John.
The healthcare sector is turning to the temporary foreign worker program to fill jobs. They're increasingly being called upon by hospitals, clinics, and care facilities to fill persistent staffing shortages in the wake of the pandemic. Paula Duhachuk explains.
The bulk of the hiring last year was for nurse aides, orderlies, and patient service associates. This is a position that could be known by a few different names depending on where you are in the country, like healthcare aides or personal support workers. We see that there were about 2,500 approvals of those jobs, up from just 16 a few years ago. The data shows there's also growing interest in hiring registered nurses. There were about 600 of those positions approved last year. As for family doctors, there were about 200 of those jobs approved, and one organization we spoke with that runs walk-in clinics across Canada says they've hired 9 family doctors this way.
Obviously, we would love if there were more family physicians with permanent residency or citizen status readily available to fill the vacancies that we have right now and provide the much needed primary care to the rest of the Canadians, but unfortunately it's not the case. The demand that we're seeing from patients for access to a family doctor currently far outweighs our supply of physicians that we have that are have the capacity to take on additional patients.
Now, I'll make a note that not every position approved necessarily gets filled by a temporary foreign worker, but the numbers show there's significant growing interest among healthcare employers in using the program. And some experts say this situation shows just how bad staffing shortages have become, that employers are looking to fill jobs through this program.
I think this is another example of the overall healthcare workforce crisis. We see high levels of workload, high levels of burnout, high levels of attrition. And if you can imagine that, that's a vicious circle. And we have to interrupt that in some way, shape, or form.
Still, that expert says even though this is one way to deal with staffing shortages, it's not necessarily the best way. And at a broader level, we should be putting more effort into retaining healthcare workers who are already in Canada. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
Centenarians are the fastest growing age group in the country, according to the latest data from Statistics Canada. Their numbers are poised to increase almost 10 times higher over the next half century. The number of people aged at least 100 more than tripled between 2000 and 2023. Estimates suggest the number of Canadians aged 85 and older will increase threefold over the next 50 years. The rise in longevity can be attributed to improvements in health care and medical awareness. Genetics likely play a key role in most cases.
It's been nearly 3 years since a major wildfire swept through the village of Lytton, BC. 2 people died and nearly all the buildings were destroyed. As Yvette Bren reports, residents who lost their homes are finally seeing some progress in rebuilding their community.
It's been 3 years since the village of Lytton in British Columbia was destroyed by wildfire. Almost 90% of the structures here burned. And this came just one day after the temperatures in this village hit the highest ever recorded in Canada at 49.6 degrees Celsius.
3 years. I just can't believe it's been 3 years and we're only just starting to rebuild.
Rebuilding has taken a long time because of administrative hurdles, permitting and archaeology that has to be done. This is one of the longest inhabited settlements in North America, and there are many hidden burial grounds that people have forgotten about and are being found as they excavate new homes.
Right from the start, we knew from some of the early maps that there were buildings that were constructed on burial grounds, and so we knew that we were walking on the bones of our ancestors for the most part. Lytton is a storied place.
Each home must meet high standards to meet fire resiliency standards and also environmental standards. They want net zero to be built here. They want to build back better.
Well, we all have a lot of hope. Yeah. This place will always be Lytton, and it's got a lot of heart, and we're not going away.
But that's been really frustrating and difficult for some people that have been living for 3 years in hotels, in trailers, with family off-site. For them, just seeing construction begin is a sign of new hope and renewal for this town that has a history of boom and bust. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Lytton.
With wildfire season underway in Western Canada, the small community of Kingfisher in the BC interior is taking measures of its own. Recently, residents received basic training in how to fight fires. As Megan Dooling reports, it's part of the province's plan to bulk up human resources to help BC wildfire crews in remote areas.
Everything we have is volunteer. So people built fire wagons complete with hoses and pumps, and that's all been community-minded people. So yeah, every year we just get a little bit better, a little bit more knowledgeable, and I think we're going in the right direction.
Kingfisher is a rural community with around 500 year-round residents. It doesn't have a fire department, so community members are doing what they can to be self-reliant. The Kingfisher Community Society formed so the group could sign up for the 2-day S100 course.
Pump site without a water thief.
Doug McLeod is an experienced forester who's given 13 courses this spring in rural communities across the interior of BC.
In my experience, the locals, they know the area, they know the roads, they know the terrain, they know the weather. They're invaluable. They know the water sources.
McLeod says BC's recent push to educate First Nations and other remote residents is the future of wildfire fighting. It's new this year, and how it plays out remains to be seen. Megan Dooling, CBC News, Kingfisher.
Canada's main stock index closed down today, weighed by losses in the telecom and base metal sectors, while U.S. stock markets were mixed. Here's a look at how the markets did do as we head to break. Well, I know looking around the city, the lawns have certainly appreciated the wet weather we've been having.
Yeah, we were saying yesterday how dry the lawns were, so it was nice they got a soaking.
Yeah, burning up in a few spots, and yeah, it's definitely the vegetable gardens really soaking it up. I know mine are definitely loving this wetter weather, and they're going to love the sunshine tomorrow, right? And the lawns, you'll hear the grass growing tomorrow. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day. This is going to be a great spot to be tomorrow. Falls Lake, and I'm guessing that this hammock is already reserved.
It will be occupied.
That would be a good place to hang out. I can feel myself relaxing just being there, right?
Yeah. Ray Edmonds, Thank you so much for sharing. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Falls Lake is going to be a terrific spot tomorrow. 26, 27 degrees there, lakeside. Nice southwest wind, keeping things cool, or at least comfortable. We'll see temperatures a bit cooler along the coastlines. Tri-County area, the Atlantic coastline, you can see those areas shaded in yellow. That's where that sea breeze will be pushing its way in, keeping temperatures closer to the high teens, low 20s. But it's going to be a pretty nice day indeed. Now for Thursday, we've got that wet weather coming in. So cloudy skies, showers. We'll see temperatures, you can see 18 to 22. Muggier feel on Thursday as well. That humidex creeping up and that humidity level creeping up with the dew point. We'll be watching that low depart, and there is the next system coming in with that wetter weather for Thursday. Building the clouds Wednesday night. There it is there, tracking in. Secondary low following that with another band of rain perhaps for Thursday night in through Friday morning. But that moves out, and then we've got this little area of high pressure coming in. And then for the weekend, again, it's all about timing. So increasing clouds Saturday, but a dry day. Looks like that wet weather arrives for Saturday night. Lingering for Sunday, and then again the general trend is for a west to east clear out on Monday. The question is, how quickly does it clear out? That'll of course become more clear throughout the next few days.
We shall stay tuned. All right, thanks, Ryan. Well, one dog is finding out that being exceptionally ugly can be rewarding. Take a look at this.
The world's ugliest dog is Wildfire!
Yeah, meet Wildfang, the winner of this year's Ugliest Dog contest. It took the Pekingese from Oregon 5 attempts before finally taking home the trophy. But the competition this year wasn't any easier.
A close second was a 14-year-old pug named Rome. The contest organizers see the annual event as a way to raise awareness about the animal rescue and adoption.
Wildfang was the clear winner, huh?
Tom usually is in
that's
the
it. Yeah,
mix
for
there.
sure.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.